Joey Gallo.
Welcome in to the NSFW Dynasty podcast. We are back. I'm your host, Dave Reed, joined by my co-host, Ryan Wilkinson and Joey Gallo. How you boys doing?
Doing good. Good to be back. Thanks for holding down the fort last time without me. You guys did a great job.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
we
to be
did.
back and good to have you back.
Yeah, no, I know we were phenomenal, but it is happy to have the whole trio back. We feel whole again. There was definitely a void.
Yeah.
I felt by all the listeners. Let's be real. How you guys feeling? We're at the midpoint of the season, 8 weeks in. I mean, it's been pretty crazy. I just tried to sell and I said it in the podcast, I started rebuilding. Ended up having the weekly high this week. We'll get into that later. So, now I'm deciding, do I continue with our rebuild? But how are you guys feeling?
I told you last time, I was like, you're selling and you have a winning record and you were like top of your division. So, yeah, we're feeling pretty good. I think we have maybe the second most points in the league, but we're behind Schluter in our division and pretty much have no chance to catch him since he just somehow keeps winning week after week.
He hasn't lost since, I don't know, November of last year. I don't know when the last time that guy lost.
Yeah, it's crazy. But we're feeling pretty good about our playoff hopes. And, as we all know, you just got to make the playoffs and then go from there.
That's right. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, it's going to be a tight playoff race for those non-division winner slots, right? Which is particularly relevant for Ryan and I because Schluter is in our division and he's 8-0. But there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams at 4-4, including myself, and then another couple at 5-3. So it just kind of feels like it's kind of wide open for any of those teams to make or miss the playoffs. I think I'm gonna try and make a run for it, although I desperately need a running back help. But yeah, we'll see. I don't love my chances the rest of the way this year. I probably would be interested in a little bit of a soft sell depending on how things go, but I've won the last 2 weeks, so building some momentum. Maybe keep it going this week. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm Sam in a weird spot. I started off 3-0, lost 4 straight, and some real low scores during that losing streak, and then bounced back in a major way this past week. So we'll see. I'm at 4-4 as well. Did just lose a quarterback. We'll get into that reason why later. So trying to figure out ways to level up. But I've had a lot of players that suddenly popped up into value. So I'm like, all right, maybe I make a push. So I don't know. I'm toying around with going for it. But again, all the 4-4 teams, and Joe, I know you're feeling it too. It's a little stressful. Like you want to buy in, but I don't know, it's dipping a toe. You're not fully into it. But we'll see. But aside from that, we got a fun episode for you. We're actually going to be doing a rookie draft redo a little bit later. Now that we're midway through the season, have a little bit more data to kind of look at and see how these players are performing. See what players would move up or down if we were to draft today. But before that, as always, there's always injuries that happen every single week. Some of them may have sank your week, but we'll run through them right now and see if any other opportunities may be popping up as a result of these. So starting out with the quarterbacks, Jordan Love had a left groin strain. You saw him get it a little bit earlier in the game. He kind of stunk. After that, he was not very good, and then eventually had to exit the game, and Malik Willis came in. Malik Willis does not lose ever. So they actually had I think he had a game-winning drive to win that game. But Jordan Love is questionable for this week. I think it is a divisional game, so we'll see if he plays this week. Drake May left with a concussion, opening the door for Jacoby Brissett to come back, also leading a game-winning drive against the Jets. He's still in the concussion protocol, so I'll be surprised if he plays this week, but something to monitor. And coming back, Derek Carr, who's missed the last 3 games, is actually trending to play in Week 9, which I think they'll need because I think Rattler was actually benched for Hayner, I believe, midway through that game. So they definitely are welcoming Carr back. And Andy Dalton Missed week 8 with a thumb injury because of the car accident. We were going to see if he was actually able to go, but news came out earlier today that he is healthy, but Bryce Young is still going to start no matter what, and Andy Dalton will be the backup. So, with the quarterbacks, what are the major takeaways for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Love is a big one. It's just like the offense there has been a little bit unpredictable to begin with. I feel like with the amount of receiving options that they have, I found that even like Jaden Reed has been a little bit unreliable, and um, obviously it throws even more of a wrinkle if it's Willis out there instead of Love. Um, so I would like to see him healthy, but it'll be interesting to see if he actually ends up playing or not. I don't think he practiced today, and they have the Lions, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, he's had a tough time staying healthy this season. Hopefully, he can get back out there this week. It's always the worst, too, when you start someone and then they go out after scoring like 1 or 2 fantasy points and there's nothing you can do about it. At least the other guys, you can generally know before the game if you're going to start them or not. So it's tough. But hopefully he's back out there. And then, yeah, Dalton, getting put back to the bench. Bryce Young, maybe some value again. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like the Panthers are. Don't know if I'd say value, but the Panthers are at least giving him another shot. So we'll see what
Yeah.
happens. He did look better last week than he had at any point previously. They still got destroyed. They were not very good, but he didn't look as flustered as he did earlier in the season.
Yeah.
And as someone who is an Olave owner, excited for Derek Carr to get back out there, even though Carr obviously loves Shaheed. Shaheed's gone, so he's got to throw to Olave, right? So I'm
Yeah.
hoping that works out as I'm an Olave owner. And jumping into the running back, so talking about someone who got hurt and left and probably sank your week if you started him, which I did in a couple of leagues. Jordan Mason, I think was it 2 weeks ago, he had an AC joint sprain in the shoulder. He aggravated again earlier in the game, left the game. They said he could have returned. He never really did. They're on bye this week, and it sounds like Christian McCaffrey should be back in week 10 after the bye. So those with Jordan Mason, that run could be over. Wouldn't drop him. We'll see what happens with CMC. How he is. Tendency to get injured there. Tyrone Tracy, rookie phenom, fully took over the role for the Giants. And then when the game was pretty much out of hand, just gets crushed and gets concussed. And it was Monday Night Football, so it'll be tough for him to get back this week. We'll see how he progresses through the protocol, but it's a shorter week because of Monday Night Football. So keep an eye on that. But he looked great, and I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on him going forward. Kendry Miller, not that you were playing him because he's been hurt, finally got back. Guess what? Got hurt again. Hamstring strain. This guy is definitely missing this week and just cannot play on the field. His body rejects football. Rico Dowdle, weird situation there. It was like a last second inactive. Hopefully you didn't get stuck with him in your lineup. I believe they said he was ill or sick, but from what I heard from beat reporters, he seemed fine. So it's a weird thing going on in Dallas. Not really sure what's happening there. And then Jonathan Brooks. Actually, I believe I saw that he practiced in full today, so it looks like he may be having his debut this week in week 9. But from the running backs, what are some major takeaways? And also, please opine on Tyrone Tracy.
Yeah, I mean, Tracy obviously has looked really good the last 4 weeks. So stinks that he got a concussion. Hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. I mean, pretty much had taken over the starting role. So I'm sure we'll
20
talk.
rush attempts, just saying.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about him as we redo the rookie draft in a little bit here. We'll see how high he's risen in the rankings.
That's right.
My major frustration is that all this commentary about how Mason could have actually come back and play, like it wasn't really that much of an injury. And I guess honestly, like Isaac Garendo came in there and actually looked pretty good, so they didn't really need Mason in there. But going into a bye, and you're planning on having McCaffrey back after the bye, so I don't like. I mean, not to discredit his own like personal health and well being, but like I don't know why we're being cautious with Jordan Mason in a big game when we think he could possibly go back out there. So that was a little bit frustrating for me as somebody who owns Mason in several places and lost matchups because he basically goosed.
Yeah, I lost one matchup by 2 points And I won a matchup by 2 points, like playing against Jordan Mason. So like it seemed like if you own Jordan Mason, you were in a close matchup that you lost a lot.
Yeah. Tyrone Tracy, yeah, we talked about him a little bit last week. I'm a fan. I like the fact that he's a converted wide receiver because it makes him more of a weapon in the passing game. Sometimes when he's running, he looks like a converted wide receiver. Like he doesn't like look like a running back. But yeah, I mean, I love him. He's explosive. He's great. He's definitely got more juice than Devin Singletary. So I'm happy to see him, doing something. I just want to say that Kendre Miller also dead to me. I've been hanging on to him in a couple leagues where I need running back help, just kind of hoping that he'll turn into something, and I'm cutting him loose everywhere and never looking back.
I had him in a few places too. Same thing. I made one trade where I was like, oh, maybe Kamara's older. Just such a waste of talent. Yeah, this guy is just a waste. I can't stand him anymore. Moving down to wide receivers, and, I'll throw in one tight end there too. But the big story here, Stephon Diggs, torn ACL, done for the year. I believe he's like 31 years old. It's a contract year, so that is a rough hit. I'm not sure how much fantasy relevance he has. I'm sure he'll get back on the NFL field at some point, but we'll see if contributes for fantasy again. Christian Kirk, fractured collarbone, also done for the year. And I felt like he had something like this last year, but someone double check that for me. But I feel like he missed most of the season last year for a similar injury. But this is also brutal for the Jags because Brian Thomas Jr. also left with a rib injury. Was hearing initially that it could be missing 2 to 4 weeks. Now it's hearing that there's some optimism. He's questionable. Maybe he gets in, but just understand that this is a very questionable situation for him and it could miss some time. So there's not a lot of pass catchers in Jacksonville. Debo Samuel, who missed last week or 2 weeks ago, I should say, with an illness, came back, played this week, had a rib injury. He left the game and everything. I feel like the 49ers, everyone's just dropping like flies there. But it sounds like he should be good and come back after the bye. Sterling Shepard, who ascended to the top of the wide receiver ranks there, he got a hamstring injury, so he's going to be missed multiple weeks. And T. Higgins, last minute quad injury. This was like in practice and completely missed. This is the most bizarre thing. It only happens to T. Higgins. So this guy's very frustrating to own, and honestly, he's questionable for this week too. So Mike Williams 2.0, Joe. How do you feel about him?
I knew you were going to say that.
I'm certainly not confident that he's going to play this week.
Mm-hmm.
We're texting about this. It's just like it's not an ideal situation. That several times now you're looking at, like just getting notifications on Sunday morning that, Higgins is suddenly questionable or not expected to play because he has some kind of like a random soft tissue injury that was like came out of nowhere. Yeah. So we don't love that.
No.
Also, curious what you think. So from a Diggs perspective, Tank Dell last year was very good when it was just he and Nico. Obviously, Nico's still out right now, so it seems like Tank's going to be the only show in town. But Tank's been kind of underwhelming this entire season, mostly. So curious if this will mean a little bit of a return to form for him from what he was last year, or if that was really just kind of the exception versus the rule. And this is what we should, his production this year is more of what we should actually expect moving forward. So yeah, that was kind of the one thing that I thought about in regards to that Diggs injury.
Yeah, Tank Dell's going to have more value. I don't see how he doesn't have more value going forward. Yeah, he'll get the targets. He'll look good. I think it's who else now steps up on here is Dalton Schultz, is Xavier Hutchinson out of nowhere. But I think Tank Dell will be useful again, where he was like you almost had to bench him. But I don't know, Ryan, how are you feeling about that situation?
Yeah, that's what I would think. I mean, he has to be more valuable than before, right? Diggs is gone, and like you said, Nico Collins is hurt right now too, so he's going to be the guy. And then, presumably will still have a lot of value when Nico comes back and he slots back into that wide receiver 2 role. So it'll be interesting to see if he can turn the season around a little bit. And then for the Jags, been really excited for Brian Thomas Jr. this year. He's been looking great. Hopefully, he doesn't miss too much time, but will also be interesting to see if he has even more value now with Christian Kirk being done for the year. So,
Yeah, honestly, Evan Ingram is wheels up. He's
yeah.
going to get like 20 receptions this week. I honestly might just ladder his receptions right now. I might just take a look at that bet. He's going to get so many.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's no one else to throw to. So,
Yeah, and he's already the security blanket for Lawrence.
yeah.
So there's only more target share coming his way. And finally, just throwing this out, T.J. Hawkinson looks like he's playing, making his debut. Let's do it. My team's getting back, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We mentioned him a little bit last week too, like what that means for the offense and where I don't know. It probably means less targets for Jordan Addison, which is frustrating to me because I feel like he should be getting more targets as is.
All three targets are going to go away.
It fucking kills me. But I guess it's not even his fault. It's just, this is the function of having Justin Jefferson wide open on every single play. Like, why would you throw it to anybody else? So
he also makes a wild catch every single week. That's just like no one else is making this catch, whether it's getting his body part in. Like there's a bobble one right along the lines. Like no one's getting their feet in trying to make that play where it's like on his helmet. But of course he does.
Yeah. He is ridiculous.
Yeah, and then moving over to some other updates that happened this week, Deontay Johnson was traded to the Ravens. So everyone thought he was going to get traded from the Panthers at some point before the trade deadline. Ravens were not high on that list of places that people thought he would be ending up. So what is your take on Deontay to the Ravens, the impact for him, all the Ravens, and then potentially on the Panthers side as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be a good thing for him to get off the Panthers. I don't know if I would say the Ravens is like a super great landing spot, but I think if anything, I'd be more curious in how it's going to impact Zay Flowers. Does his value take a little bit of a hit now? I don't know, but I think you got to at least assume he has some more value.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Baltimore's passing offense is so unpredictable to begin with. And I guess maybe they've normalized a little bit lately, and it seems like, like Mark Andrews is getting back into somewhat of like a decent rhythm of targets, and he scored a couple touchdowns. I don't know if it just kind of like clutters the wide receiver room and, just tries to create more what's the word I'm looking for? Like competition for targets when they don't even really want to throw the ball much to begin with.
Yeah, that's kind of how I was feeling. Like I don't think he just steps in there and has a huge role. There's not like this huge passing game that they have that he'll be a massive part of, which is why I would, if anything, be a little more concerned with the other guys because they're going to lose a little bit and they already weren't the top, part of the attack.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think amazing for the Ravens. His offense only gets better. Obviously, they just lost to the Browns, which we'll get into, but I think the Ravens as a whole gets better. Deontay's floor comes down a little bit because he was getting so many targets, but honestly, that was with Andy Dalton. And if the Panthers are moving forward Bryce Young like they are this week, maybe it is actually an improvement because for what he was going to expect in Carolina. But yeah, Zay Flowers probably comes down a lot. The biggest one, Rashad Bateman, who's like I was getting higher on with each passing week. Kind of the wheels come off there. I don't know if you can really rely on Bateman anymore. Seems like he's going to lose a lot of touches. But if anything, I think it helps Lamar. It helps, in my opinion, Derrick Henry because the better the offense is, the more likely they're going to be in a leading position, which means Derrick Henry is getting more touches then. So I think it inherently helps him as well. But what about on the Panther side? Because the cupboard's pretty barren there. I mean, you got Xavier Legette, which I'm pumped for, and he has looked pretty good. There's I think is it Jalen Coker? Coker is his last name.
Yeah, Coker.
He's an interesting player as well. I think he had a pretty good game this past week. So these are players that in Dynasty, their own Coker maybe was on waivers, but he should have been scooped up before. So maybe you got all of a sudden some level of value. But yeah, I mean, with those targets going away, other players hopefully have to step up.
Yeah, I mean they'll get the targets. It's just how valuable are those targets? Right now, not too valuable, but they are the top 1 and 2 wide receivers on the team now. So
Adam Thielen, baby. I
Yeah.
think I picked him up. He will be back. I think he's supposed to be back this week. So from that disgusting, like basically torn hamstring that he suffered. What was that, week 3? So I honestly think he'll have a decent amount of value too. As crazy as it is to say, it's not going to look good or feel good, but I think he'll put up points. Not a lot of points, but maybe somewhere in the 8 to 12 points per game range.
Yeah.
The rest of the season, which is not exactly what you want, but hey, if you need somebody to just throw in there in a flex or a second or third flex to just get you double-digit points, then you could do worse.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, he should get targets, and we saw last year that Bryce Young likes him. So yeah, that's not a bad call. On the other side of that game, Jameis Winston, he led the Browns to a win over these Ravens, which I don't think anyone expected. I think it might have been like a double-digit spread going into that game, and Winston came up, got the W. And the offense actually looked good. It scored over 20 points or 20 points for the first time all year. And you're starting to see a lot of these weapons starting to emerge and like becoming useful. And the biggest one that really popped up is Cedric Tillman as a result of that. I believe he's in his second year right now in Tennessee, but Jared Judy and Elijah Moore all stepped up. So where are you guys feeling about these Browns offensive weapons?
I like what I see. I think they're going to be pretty good for fantasy. I think they're going to be a pretty good team for NFL football too. Like I actually think that this is a big upgrade for them, and their defense is good. So like James makes terrible throws. Like there were several throws even last game
But
where
no picks. I think it was
yeah,
3 to.
yeah. But I think there will be upside for all of their passing offense pretty much the rest of the way as long as he's out there.
yeah, I mean I feel like everyone kind of wanted this, just didn't know what was going to happen with Watson with his contract. So definitely a positive for the team, and you got to be excited if you have those wide receivers now.
Yeah, how do you guys feel about Cedric Tillman, who's on my taxi squad? I'm pretty sure I floated it out to every single player or team out in our league, and everyone rejected him. Hope you guys are eating crow now. But how do you guys feel about Cedric Tillman?
He looks good.
Tell me you love him. Tell me you love him.
No, but Elijah Moore got what 13 targets last week.
Yeah, but Elijah Moore stinks. We've seen
the
this.
whole offense is. I think Jameis is right elevating the tide of the entire offense. Tillman along with him. He's probably the best option. I definitely would prefer to own him than the other options, but.
Yeah, I mean, stock is obviously trending up. Do I think he's going to score 25 points a week very often? Probably not, but he's got the potential. So
yeah, no. The biggest thing was Cooper leaving too, because he played the same exact role as Cooper every time he was on the field previously. He was kind of out of position. He needs to be that outside X receiver, and he's getting those opportunities now. And then you have a quarterback like Winston who throws to the X receiver downfield, and that's currently a match made in heaven. Hopefully it continues. And then finally, so I talked about some good news on my team. I'll talk about some bad now. So the Colts are benching Anthony Richardson, my quarterback, for Joe Flacco. So this stinks for Anthony Richardson owners, but he was very bad as a quarterback, but I think this raises the tide for all pass catchers. So how are you guys feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
What is Anthony Richardson's value if he's getting benched like that? And then, the whole thing where he took himself out of the game because he was tired. You can't do that. So definitely tough if you're an Anthony Richardson holder.
The unawareness of that you couldn't do it. The fact that he just announced it too. It was like, oh yeah, I was just thinking it. Like, what are you doing, man?
Just
Like, you
needed a
can do
blow.
it, but don't say it.
literally just tapped on his head.
Pretend you're hurt if you're tired. Do not say you're tired.
Like I need a blow.
Everyone thought he was hurt too. They kind of like, oh no, he took a shot. It's like, nah, just needed a breath.
Just tired.
Yeah.
He literally was smiling in the press conference after admitting it too.
Yeah, I immediately live bet the Colts +7 for like $100, thinking that Flacco was going to be in the rest of the game, and I was like, "Oh, this is great," like hammer Colts, and then he was right back in there on the next play. So I mean, they covered anyway, but it his laziness nearly cost me money.
Can't have that. But yeah, no, if you have the pass catchers like Josh Downs, who looked awesome, and Michael Pittman, who definitely is a best friend of the type of quarterback that Flacco is, and honestly, even Jonathan Taylor, like I think all these players have all leveled up big time. So honestly, addition by subtraction probably, and that definitely helps the Colts' chances of making a push for the playoffs. But stinks if you own Anthony Richardson right now. I do think Anthony Richardson, like this, maybe is the better way to get him to progress a bit more. Is like learn from Flacco, not be thrown into the thrones of game action. We've seen that cripple a million young quarterbacks already. So hopefully this is better for him long term. But yeah, for the near term, this definitely stinks. And trying to find a hole, fill this hole right now.
Yeah, I don't know if you can spin that one positively.
It's not positive right now, but I'm saying it could. Honestly, we saw it happen to Bryce Young. We saw it happen to Darnold. See it with a lot of these young quarterbacks. They start off, if they are not good, they're terrible very early, and their confidence is shot. So that's that's a harder thing to come back from is if you lose confidence at quarterback. But honestly, getting benched doesn't help. But he's laughing about being tired, so maybe his confidence is okay. All right. Well, with that, into the main event here. Like I said, we're 8 weeks in. We got a little bit more data, seeing how these rookies are performing. And obviously, we all do rookie drafts early, right after the NFL draft season. That's before you even know how the depth charts are going to pan out. So you're making your bets early. Now we're going to see which of these bets are starting to pay off. If there's any picks that we would adjust compared to what we did in our personal rookie draft. So we're going to do a redo draft. We're going to do the first 2 rounds, so the first 24 picks. We're going to draft all the players. Again, this is Superflex Tight End Premium that we draft in. Right now, Joey did a randomizer. He's going to have the first pick. Weird that he did the randomizer and got that. And then I'll have the second pick, and Ryan will be the third, and then we'll just keep cycling through that order. But with that said, Joe, why don't you kick it off?
Yep. So I will kick it off with tough one between 2 guys here, but I am going to go with Jaden Daniels. I think that he has just shown a level of upside in the first couple of weeks that, Caleb has looked very good, but I like what I've seen from Daniels a little bit more. And as a passer, as a rusher, I think that him offering that aspect of being able to rush for touchdowns and pretty sizable chunk yardage. I mean, the play he got injured on was like a huge rush, and he's been averaging, I don't know, something in like the 40 to 50 yard range for rushing yards a game at least. So, yeah, I think I would go Daniels in Superflex, and in a non-Superflex, that would be my pick would be different, but just in our format, I would go with the quarterback.
All right. Well, I have the second pick, and my pick might be closer to in line to your non-Superflex pick. Because I agree, Daniels to me was the 101. He was the 104 in our draft, so you got good value there, Joe. But for me, I'm actually going to be going with Neighbors here. You can call it a homer pick, but I really think Neighbors is like a game changer wide receiver that has the potential to be top 7, top 5 easily. And like you can argue who's the better receiver between Harrison and Neighbors. I think Neighbors on talent right now is proving out to be the better one. Harrison maybe has the better QB situation, even though Kyler hasn't really looked that great so far. Obviously, there's a quarterback you can go here as well, but so far it's been, and for that quarterback, we'll get into it. I still think he'll be a solid quarterback, but I don't have as much conviction that he will guaranteed be a top 10 quarterback going forward. He's had a lot of like major dud games, and when you're picking in the top of your rookie draft, getting a solidified stud that you know is going to stay a stud forever is a very valuable to me. So even though I know that quarterbacks carry that extra value in Superflex, I have full confidence the Neighbor is going to be an elite option for like 7+ years. So at this pick, I'd be going Neighbors. I don't know if that's spicy. How do you guys feel about that?
I don't think it's too spicy. I don't hate it. I think it's a little dependent on what your team needs. Like if you're desperate for a quarterback, then I
Yeah.
think it's a little spicy. But yeah, I mean, he obviously looks great, so should be a stud wide receiver for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
no, I'll keep it brief. I still think I would take Harrison over Neighbors, but I don't mind it. I don't think it's spicy. I just think it's obviously not as cut and dry as it was, 8 weeks ago.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, and I didn't think Caleb Williams was going to fall to me, so I will take him at third. I'm sure he'll go relatively soon here. I was leaning towards a tight end just because I felt like in a tight end premium dynasty league, he'd have a lot of value. But I don't know. I still don't think you can pass up on Williams. I do think he'll have a long career. Like Dave said, he's had 3 weeks that were pretty much a dud, but he's had 2 weeks, and they're the more recent weeks where he was QB6 and QB1 overall. So I think he can still come on strong, and he's got a lot of targets and a lot of talent on that team. So I think he's got a long, strong career ahead of him, and I'd still go with him.
Yeah, I like the pick there. Hard to argue against that. He's got the weapons there, and I agree. I still have money on his over yardage, even though it's getting tighter with these low yardage outputs every now and then. But I still think he'll have a solid career.
Yeah. And again, I think it's a little team dependent. Like if you have 2 QBs that you're really confident in for the next couple of years, I potentially would have gone with a different pick. But if you're just going based on how valuable someone is in the rookie draft, I'd take Williams.
All right, back to you, Joe.
Yeah. So this one's easy for me. It's definitely going to be Marvin Harrison. I think collectively we're probably too low on Marvin Harrison. I think if any other, not any other, I think in the majority of rookie drafts with our scoring settings and roster format and whatnot, Marvin Harrison would still go in the top 3 picks. So, I think whoever was picking 4th here in this particular draft would be getting good value with him. There's been some weird things going on with that offense in general, but he still looked great. And I've, as the season goes on, it appears like he's building a little bit more of a rapport with Kyler Murray. And frankly, Kyler has been a little off for the majority of the season himself. So my confidence in Marvin Harrison is still pretty high. So for me, that would be an easy pick here.
So you say top 3. Who's the one that gets dropped out in our draft here?
So for me at 101, I was between Daniels and Harrison. So if it was me and I was ranking the top 4, I think I would go Daniels, Harrison, Williams, Neighbors.
Interesting.
Yeah, I feel like with Harrison, it's almost just that everyone expected him to come in and put up 20 points a game because it was Marvin Harrison Jr. And so he's had a little bit of a slow start, and that's almost hurt him. Whereas, some other top wide receivers, even if they've had some off games, it didn't hurt them as much because the expectations weren't as high. So I obviously do agree. I think long term he's going to be great, and it does seem like he's establishing more of a connection with Kyler Murray. So hopefully that grows and he turns into the stud everyone thinks he will be.
Yeah, for me, I would have personally dropped out Caleb from that top 4 and put Caleb at 4, but because I think Neighbors is just a better fit. And don't get me wrong, I think Harrison's like an elite option too. So don't hear what I'm not saying here. He's not bad, and I'm not trying to be down on him. I just think Neighbors has proved out to be a more explosive player that Harrison doesn't have that type of game on him. He doesn't have like the yak ability. He doesn't get as much inspiration. That being said, he does look very good, and I think it's been more on Kyler than Marv so far. But yeah, with that too, I mean, it leaves again another layup pick for me here at 5, and it's someone I think all of us want. If it was a not super flex, this would be an easy top 3 pick in a tight end premium, and even without, is Brock Bowers, and he was the 105 in our pick in our draft too. So props to the team who had that cojones to go that early on him. But he looks like probably the tight end 1 in all of Dynasty right now. The guy he's just special, and he doesn't look like he should be like that when he's not wearing football pads. He does not look athletic, but when he's on a football field, the guy is an absolute beast of a player. I don't know if you guys have different takes in there, but he is the number 1 option there in Vegas.
Yeah, no, I wanted him. I was hoping you wouldn't take him.
Yeah.
No, I think he's easily the pick there. I think those were the top 5 guys, and
Yep.
I think, again, depending on the makeup of your team, I feel like Bowers could go even higher if you really needed a tight end, because he's looking like a stud.
Honestly, I'm fine with him anywhere in the first after the 101. I'm fine with him anywhere. I think Daniels is a clear 101. After that, I think any of the other guys, based on your team and your preference, I think can go.
Yeah.
So I feel like those were the top 5, and this is where it starts to get a little interesting. I'm actually gonna go with Brian Thomas Jr.
I like
feel
it.
like he's had a great season so far, although he's a little injured now. Hopefully he's not out long. Christian Kirk just went out for the season. Seems like he has some chemistry with Trevor Lawrence. He's had 3 top 10 wide receiver finishes already in 8 games. So I see a future there, and I feel like he could turn into a really good wide receiver for the foreseeable future. So that'd be my pick there.
I love it. That would have been mine as well. I think he looks like the real deal there.
Yeah, I agree. That was the direction I would have gone as well. For me, at 7, I think that I would still be going with Rome Odunze here. He hasn't really done anything to show that he was not worthy of the high draft capital. It's just he's in an offense right now where there's other competition for targets, and they've all just kind of been suffering the struggle of having a rookie quarterback. I mean, not every rookie quarterback comes in like Jaden Daniels, and it's actually a lot more common for rookie quarterbacks to struggle a bit. That being said, I still think that Odunze has shown flashes of his potential, and between him and other options at this pick would have probably been the likes of Xavier Worthy and Lad McConkey and company, Keon Coleman. I still like the player Odunze better than those guys and the potential, so that's who I'd be going with here.
Yeah, I don't hate that pick, especially when you're looking at those other wide receivers. I'd probably still lean Odunze. I mean, you've seen the talent there, and I still believe in the talent. One of those wide receivers I don't believe in, so would not be picking him. I think that guy's a couple tiers further down, if we're gonna be honest. So this to me is when the draft starts getting a little bit hairier. There's still, I think, a tier of players that I lean into, and it's mainly going to get boosted because of the positional boost that we get in Superflex. And I'm going to go with Drake May still. Even though there's another quarterback who I am liking, has looked pretty good from at least a fantasy perspective. Drake May looks like he belongs in. Like, he was very explosive. Obviously, he's had a concussion, but from his passing abilities, he's throwing the ball downfield. He's very sharp, but he also has some rushing and mobility that I like a lot. And I think he potentially could be a longer term quarterback with a potentially higher ceiling than the other quarterback that I was looking at here. So at 108, I'd be going with Drake May, which I believe is around where he was picked. Yeah, he was the 109 in our draft. And just to give a little props to the Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas was the 110 when we drafted, and he's all the way up to 106 right now. So that's the biggest boost so far we've seen in picks. But Drake May, how do you guys feel about him?
I like it, but I'm going to pick who I'm assuming you were referring to that I personally think I would take over Drake May, which is Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Just put up a monster game, 4 touchdowns, 35 fantasy points, but he's looked good as of late. His last 4 games, he has 3 top 10 QB finishes, 9 touchdowns to 1 interception. Seems to really be coming on, and there's really not any quarterback competition there. He's by far the starter and is having a great year.
Yeah, and his underrated rushing ability, I think, is like really helping him out here.
Yeah, it's been not surprising because that was part of his skill set, but yeah, I think that is definitely an underrated part of his game, and if he's able to make the throws, which like you said, he's been looking good on downfield throws. So, yeah, I mean, so here's my thing about the difference between May and Nix is definitely that to Dave's point, the longevity that you're going to get out of May, I think, is just a little bit more secure than with Nix. I feel like with Bo, while he's looked pretty good, I'm just not totally sold on him from a longevity standpoint. So that's where between those two, I lean towards May over Nix, as you guys have it.
Appreciate the confidence there. I picked you. But honestly, both players, I think, are proven out to be pretty valuable. But back to you, Joe.
Yeah. So I was looking ahead to see about who my next pick was going to be. And I think that we're going to go with none other than your favorite, Xavier Worthy.
Too early. Way too early.
No, I think this is the right spot for him. I really do. He's shown flashes, and I know that you're going to say he's not.
You sure about that?
I know that you're going to say he's not a target earner. He's still gotten 8 targets the last 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, and he hasn't cracked 40 yards in like a month and a half.
He does have 5 touchdowns.
I think that he's a good player. I really do. I think he's a good explosive player that when we talk about like longevity, he's young. He's only 21 years old. He's on a good team and a good offense, and it just kind of feels like there's going to be value there. And if I'm stacking him up against, the likes of Ladd McConkey and Keon Coleman and Adonai Mitchell and some of these other guys that are left on the board right now at the wide receiver position, there's just so much more upside with Worthy. And I don't tell me Xavier Legette or any. I feel like
Xavier Legette is more consistent than Worthy.
Maybe he's more consistent, but there's so much more upside with Worthy.
He's not even. If Xavier Legette was playing with Mahomes, he would be putting a much bigger stat line.
Well, I think that's part of it, though, right? I mean, Worthy is tied to Mahomes, but how do we feel about DeAndre Hopkins coming into town?
Doesn't matter. Worthy gets 3 targets anyway. Like he's not part of the game. He's only scripted gadgety plays. He's not a wide receiver. They have to script specific plays for him. But anyway, I digress. You've heard my spiel, but I'm not worried. I don't think it impacts Worthy personally because I don't think. I think they needed someone to fill that power slot role, and they didn't have actually an X on the white outside. So, yeah. Well. That's a get because I was between 2 players, but I'm going to always lean wide receiver if I can. I think Ladd McConkey is a tier or 2 above Worthy, in my opinion. I mean, he's already shown the ability to have the major upside this past week. He's got great route running. He's very fast. He can break away from defenders, good hands, and he's also tied to a very good young quarterback, and I think he's only going to continue to get better as the year progresses. So, Lad McConkey, I would be very excited to get at the back of the first round here. That's a round where he came in our draft as well, but I think he's a very useful piece for any team.
Yeah, I actually do like him. I mean, he's the wide receiver one for Herbert right now, and he just had a monster game last week, so I like that pick. I don't love this pick, but I'm gonna go with Jonathan Brooks here.
Okay.
I feel like
feels like the right time for him.
First running back off the board. He's gearing up for his first start. They did just trade Johnson, so I feel like they need someone to step up. And with Bryce Young at QB again, they're probably going to be relying on the run a bit. So, untested and still to be seen what he will do, but I feel like you could take a shot on him here.
All right. Well, I agree. And I just want to throw this out because there was basically of the first 12 picks that we just made, 11 of them were first round picks, I believe, in our draft as well. Trying to identify. The one player who was not in the first round was Bo Nix. He's the only one that he was at the 202 in our draft, so he got a bit of a boost at the 109 here. The one that dropped out, it's kind of injury related. We'll see if he gets drafted, but was J.J. McCarthy was the lone rookie who was in the first round in our draft that slipped out here.
That's actually really crazy when you think about it, because usually there's obviously some misses in the first round, and we're basically saying, except for one injury, no first round picks have missed yet.
Yeah, a couple of shifting around of values, but for the most part, we're pretty set here. And honestly, this is where things, in my opinion, is when the draft is going to start getting kind of weird, and you're going to see some bigger disparity.
Which just shows how valuable first round picks are. I mean, pretty much everyone hit on their first round pick, and now, like you said, second round is going to get interesting.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, take it away. Start off the second round.
Second round, first pick. So McCarthy is in play for me here. I think depending on team need, there's a quarterback, there's a wide receiver, and there's a running back that I like. I'm going to go with the wide receiver. I'm going to take Keon Coleman. I've liked what I've seen. I owned him in a Dynasty league and traded him a couple of weeks ago and traded him away. And I've actually really liked what I've seen from him ever since trading him away. The last couple of weeks, he's been more involved and earning more targets. He's got a pretty substantial average depth of target. Like his yards per catch numbers are in like the 20 and 30 yards each week. And he's obviously tied to Josh Allen in a good offense. So that is who I'm going to go with here. If I was a quarterback needy team, I would have no problem going with McCarthy here. And if I was a running back needy team, I just want to throw this out there. I'm not sure when he'll actually go, maybe with my next pick. But I would honestly consider taking Bucky Irving in the second round here. I feel like he's been awesome, and he's got a good opportunity in Tampa Bay. So he was definitely in somewhat of consideration, although probably the third of those three on my priority list.
Yeah. So I'm up, and actually Bucky Irving is exactly who I'm looking at right here. I agree. I've scooped him up actually in a bunch of redraft leagues as well. He looks great. He makes some crazy cuts, and I was not high on Bucky Irving coming into the rookie draft process, and I'm actually very impressed with what I've seen. JJ McCarthy is definitely someone who I would give a look, but honestly, with the emergence of Darnold and like what's going on with quarterback, I still think McCarthy's the future there. I just think it may take longer now. Like I don't think it's a guarantee that he's the starter next year. We'll see what happens at the trade deadline, and if they do anything with Darnold, maybe to give him another year since he didn't get to really practice and learn this year. So I still think McCarthy's someone I'm giving a look, but if I'm a team that's like trying to get some production earlier, I may lean with the Bucky Irving, but that's going to be my pick right now is Bucky Irving.
Yeah, I like it. We've all talked about how we're not high on White, although he seems to not go away week after week.
Well, he's a receiver now. Yeah, there's no one else to throw to.
Yeah, so He's still there, but Bucky Irving has looked great when he's gotten the opportunities. So definitely get the pick. JJ McCarthy, I'm kind of with Dave. I don't think I'm going to take him here. I feel like with Sam Darnold playing so well, it like murkies his stock a little bit. Um, Obviously, could see him being drafted here if you needed a QB, but I think I'm going to make Dave even happier with this pick and go with Tyrone Tracy.
Let's go. That's what I'm talking about. I mean,
Just got
looks
the
great.
concussion, but he's been great the last 4 weeks. Like we already talked about, Singletary doesn't look like the guy. He's kind of already taken over as the starter. So to get a starting running back around here, I feel like is pretty valuable.
I like it. It's definitely going to be something. I was between him and Bucky, but I felt like I had to give the props to Bucky in that one. But you know what? My heart for Tracy.
Yeah, so for me next, thought it was going to be easy. I can tell you who I'm not picking. I'm definitely not picking Jalen Polk.
Yeah, Polk's not going to be in the top 24 picks. I'll be honest.
No, I think I actually am going to go with JJ McCarthy here. I know it's such a small sample size, but he looked so good in that one preseason game that he played.
It was that one pass. It was just that one pass down the sideline that looked amazing.
He played one game and he looked really good in that one game. No, but I mean, he was not only was he generating buzz in camp prior to that one game that he played, but he was a high, like a top 10 draft pick. He was drafted where he was because he was being like taken onto a quarterback needy team. The fact that there were like those weird rumors floating around about a potential Darnold for Stafford swap between the Vikings and the Rams leads me to feel like the Vikings are probably a little cautiously optimistic about what they've gotten out of Darnold so far. And I'm probably higher on Darnold than you guys have been over like the length of his career. I still think that you kind of are who you are, and ultimately, I think JJ will find his way back into the starting position here. But yeah, that's going to be my choice.
Yeah, and I will say on the flip side of Darnold looking so good, it is that you would assume if McCarthy does take over that starting job, he's going to look great.
Yeah, ideally, it's easy to look good when your wide receivers are
exactly
frequently wide open.
And that coaching staff knows how to really get the best out of the quarterbacks, and the offense kind of elevates that type of play. You saw it all last year with all backup quarterbacks as well. So I definitely like the pick as well. Again, I think McCarthy's talented there. It's just more of how long you have to wait before you get to start realizing that. But yeah, I mean, still guess game. He could be the starter next year, and then this is still a solid pick. For me, it's getting kind of murky. But at this point, I'll probably take a shot on a wide receiver, and I'm between two. And honestly, this was around. I think this is exactly where I was picking before, and I was between two picks in the real draft, and one of them went right before me, made my pick easy. But I'm actually going to double down on my pick that I made here at the 205. I'm going to go with Leggett. I was between also Ricky Pearsall, who finally got on the field after being shot, which is crazy. He's all right, but I haven't been too impressed yet. But I will say with Pearsall, his opportunities are growing a lot. So, and I'm sure whoever drafts him can speak to it. But with IU going down, and then Debo, we'll see what happens if he stays on the team next year. There could be more opportunity than you thought you were having Pearsall, but I think Leggett is clearly the one now in the Panthers, even though the QB situation stinks there. Those type of prospects usually don't pay off, which is one of the things that we were hesitant upon with Leggett coming in. But I'm kind of putting those concerns at bay now, and I think he'll be a solid player with some upside if he keeps progressing. So Leggett's the pick here. I'm going for the upside.
Yeah, I like it. I think those are the two picks. I'm going to take Pearsall, and I do agree. I probably would take Leggett first. But yeah, like you said, Pearsall, he's only played 2 games, and you know, Brandon Ayuk is done, and Debo Samuel seems to always be dealing with an injury. So he's gonna probably have a lot of opportunity on that team, and it's a good offense to be on. So he's definitely got some upside.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, not just to like, keep the anti Leggett shtick going, because I actually do like Leggett. I was very, very out on him in draft season for a lot of the reasons why the whole kind of like dynasty community was a little bit out on him. Like I just the fifth year of breakout age just like
It's like never happened.
was like a very big turnoff for me. Yeah. I like what I mean with Pearsall. I like the opportunity that he has presented to him for this year. I'm not sure how that's going to turn into for long term success. If it was between the two, I would lean Pearsall. I would take Pearsall first and then Leggett, just because he's in a better offense, and you know hopefully that means more production. But um, overall, those would have been my two picks with the last two. Um, for my pick at the 207, couple guys that I'm looking at here. Um, we're really at a point though where the remaining players, um, I think any player who's like gotten on the field and significantly had the opportunity to demonstrate their value, like has been selected at this point.
Yep.
So we're kind of back to picking upside. And for me in this position, I think that would be tough call. I think I'm going to say I'm between the two backs. I'm between Trey Benson and Blake Corum. And I think I would lean towards Trey Benson. So that's going to be my pick.
Interesting.
Because, I mean, he has been getting opportunity. I think that he's um, given James Conner's age and contract situation, I feel like he's lining up to be the starter for them in the future. This guy like DeMarcado
Yeah.
gets some action, and that's a little frustrating and concerning from a Benson standpoint. I've been hanging on to Benson in a couple leagues throughout the course, like redraft leagues, just like hoping that he turns into something from like an offensive standpoint. Interestingly enough, this is like the healthiest that James Conner's ever been. But yeah, I still think that the verdict is still out on what he is and what he can be, and I think that I'm just kind of like taking the shot at the upside that when he does get the opportunity to be the starter, then he'll still be as good as a prospect as we kind of hoped.
Yeah, I will say this part of the draft is it's very murky, and we should remind ourselves the mind state we were in when we were drafting. We thought that the second round was fully flushed as well, and right now it's tough to pick a player after we've seen some more data. So just kind of talking again, Ryan, to your point that second round picks can get they're becoming more of dark throws. Um, I guess I am leaning towards the back as well. There's like a wide receiver too that I'm kind of interested here, but don't have a ton of confidence in, and I would probably go with someone I've seen produce a bit more. For me, the picks that I'm really interested in is between Blake Corum, who you haven't seen a lot of yet, but you know that the value is there in the offense, something to have to Kyron. And Ray Davis, who actually looked really good on the field, but James Cook is going to be there for a bit. Another player I just want to throw out there is Braylon Allen, who does look pretty good, but obviously Brees is going to be there. Um, I'm probably still going to lean with the upside of Blake Corum here, just because I'm shooting for upside there, and I don't think Ray Davis has that upside. But I do actually think Ray Davis has been the much more useful player this year, and I think he will be because he doesn't need an injury to be useful. I think he's in the offense. The team likes him a lot, and he looks like he belongs. And he actually has made some like downfield catches too, so he is that part of the game, which I don't think anyone realized. But at this point in the draft, I'm drafting for the upside, so I'm going to go with Blake Corum right now.
Yeah, I like it. It just depends if he gets the chance, but if he does, could be a good pick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna actually go with Jalen McMillan, which I'm
That was the
assuming is
receiver
who
I was looking
Dave.
at.
Yeah,
I like
Chris
it.
Godwin's done. Mike Evans is hurt, so he's about to get a shot at the wide receiver one role. Baker Mayfield is looking like a stud. So there's some upside there. Although last game it looked like Kate Otten was potentially the biggest
Yeah.
beneficiary so far, but McMillan's going to have a chance. So I'd take him here and hope for that upside.
Yeah, and I think Godwin's in a contract year as well, if I'm correct on that. So like, there's a chance that he actually going into next year he is a top 2 option there, and we'll see what happens with Evans as he gets older. So I like it. That was if I was going to go wide receiver of my previous pick, that was the one receiver I was looking at.
Yeah. I also would maybe given a look to Jordan Whittington, who has actually been really good for where he was drafted, and he was probably the best receiver on the Rams team while they had that period of time that Cup and Nakua were both out. So just a shout out to him as somebody who went way, way, way towards the back, but probably would end up getting drafted in.
Yeah, and Cup, they're talking about trading him, so like that could open up the door for him as well.
Yeah. For me, I think I between three guys here. Like again, depending on team need. I basically just kind of like my thought process is between Penix, Mitchell, Adonai Mitchell, and Ray Davis. I think Ray Davis has looked the best of the three on the field so far, so that's who I'm going to pick. I do think that running backs are a little bit harder to predict in terms of like, will they have value? Will they not have value? So seeing Davis already look explosive and dominate in the opportunities he's gotten makes that, like you said, like you guys both mentioned, a a pretty worthwhile pick. If I was really desperate at quarterback, I wouldn't hate the idea of stashing Penix. And Adonai Mitchell hasn't really been super, super impressive, but he does get targets. So, yeah, I wouldn't hate the idea of looking at him there either. Like comparative to some of the other wide receiver options there, like, Franklin, Polk, Wilson, Corley, Burton, like none of these guys have really like done all that much. I think in terms of like actual targets earned so far, Mitchell has been better. So that's why I think I would lean more towards him from a wide receiver standpoint if I was going wide receiver there.
Yeah, I like that pick, and I agree. The wide receivers, it's kind of hairy right now. There's no one that I would be excited about. I think there's players that could be like fine, useful players, but there's no one that I'm seeing at least a near term path to like true fantasy relevance. So this my final pick for this is getting a little tough. I'm between two players. Penix definitely gets a look. Probably going to avoid there. The other player I mentioned last time, Braylon Allen, but I think want to give a shout out just because we haven't really hit this position since early on is a tight end. So there's two tight ends that I'd be looking at right now. One is Ben Sennett, who's obviously he hasn't been getting a ton of work because Zach Ertz, I believe, is there and he's getting a lot of the targets there, but he's now tied to Jaden Daniels, which will be super valuable. And Sennett does look like he has explosiveness. But another player who I'm like, who's already involved pretty early, and I think I'm going to end up going with Sennett just because I like the being tied to a better quarterback. But I want to throw out Theo Johnson has actually been very involved and has been for like a rookie tight end has been pretty useful. So someone I'd give a look at. I'd probably if I was really drafting, wait to the third round to take him. But I just want to call out that he has been solid. But here, I'd probably go with Sennett, just knowing how good that Daniels has been, and knowing that it takes a couple years to develop, and this is tight end premium, that you got to keep kind of reloading the stock there. So I'd probably take a shot at Sennett here.
Yeah, I like that pick.
Yeah, me too.
He's flashed when he had opportunity, and Ertz is old as shit. So
Yeah, exactly.
it feels like a reasonable path to fantasy value.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I echo what you guys both said about Penix. I still don't know if I would take him because I feel like he's just going to end up stashed on your bench for who knows how long. Definitely, if you're quarterback needy, would take him here, but I'm personally going to go with Braylon Allen. I feel like he's looked good when given the chance. Obviously, Brees is there and he's on the Jets, which is never a great thing. So uh, it's a bit of a murky situation, but there's definitely upside there.
For sure. I like it. I mean, he's involved in the offense though. It's tapered off a little bit, but they definitely like him there too. And I can't believe. And he's also, we should throw out there, I think he's only 20 years old still. I don't think
Yeah.
he can drink, which is again. I don't think there's anyone who's been as old with a breakout as Leggett. Any quarterback that's had as many starts as Bo Nix before the NFL, but also no one who's ever been as young as Braylon Allen. Pretty crazy that all in the same draft class. You had that. Yeah, just a couple call outs of some major risers. So I believe Bucky Irving, who we took at the 202, he was at the 306 in our draft. So that was a pretty big jump that we're seeing there. Tyron Tracy, I got him. What was it, the 409 in our draft. He got bumped all the way up to the 203. Part of that too, I should say, Sleeper had his ADP at like 999, so you actually had to search for him. So you weren't aware, like I knew that was suppressed there, so I kind of took advantage. Um, and then we saw who else jumped up here. Jalen McMillan. He was at the 309, and he jumped up all the way to the 209. So a full round of a jump. And I think when Ray Davis, I believe, was a decent jump as well. I'm trying to find out where he fell as well. Ray Davis went from the 310 all the way up to 210, so another full round jump. Braylon Allen as well, so actually throwing that out 4.03 all the way up to 212. So any major takeaways? Any other players you want to call out that didn't get drafted? You want to, honorable mentions?
No, I just throw out a little congrats to Canelos. I feel like he's a good drafter. Like we talked about three of the guys he drafted. I feel like he also got Puka last year. He seems to hit with those late round picks.
Yeah, I hate him for it.
Agreed there, and I also think worth mentioning. Who did I just see? Isaac Orendo, and Luke McCaffrey. Honestly, I feel like Luke McCaffrey has been like pretty involved for Washington. So for somebody who was picked like later on, I feel like if we flipped over into the third round, he'd probably be one of the next guys off the board. So
yeah. But again, it's funny doing the draft now away from the NFL draft season because I don't know if you guys remember the state of mind we were in about how valuable we thought these second round, first round picks are. And now we're kind of looking back at it, and it's just like, ugh, it's not as pretty as we thought it was. But it's a mental game. So when you're trading, know your picks are more valuable around draft season.
Yeah, I feel like it really is eye opening, and I'm sure it's not like this every year, but just the difference between the first round and the second round, even the back half of the first and the early seconds, there's just a huge difference.
Yeah, it's massive. But with that, I think we'll jump into the kitchen, Joe.
Yeah, so it's that time of the week to hop into the Joey Bottles prop parlay and other potentially profitable pick kitchen. As we have for the last several weeks, me and the guys are going to offer up our personal menu of bets that we have taken or will be taking for the upcoming week. If you want to ride along and share in some profits or potentially share in some profits. And as always, just a reminder to head over to our dedicated page at signupexpert.com/NSFW. By going over to that page, you'll be able to see a list of all the sports books that are available in your area and sign up offerings. And we just think that, the more sports books that you're signed up for, the more opportunity that you have to shop for lines, the more value you're going to get, the more money you're going to ultimately end up winning in the long run. So it's a valuable proposition for everybody. And if you are going to sign up, make sure you do it through signupexpert.com/NSFW and show us some love. And with that, we will get on to our pick selection for this week, which admittedly is a little bit light, I would say, compared to our previous offerings. I also will start off by taking a big loss in the form of my Tyreek Hill bets from last week. Those did not end up working out, unfortunately. Tyreek was involved, had a pretty good game, but only amassed something like 75 or 80 receiving yards. So didn't even get up to 100 to get us to the first rung of the ladder. So not the best week for me. And Dave, do you want to recap some of yours from last week, and then we can get into this week's picks?
Yeah, so one of my early ones was Higgins, and freaking Higgins, man, didn't even know him to playing. It's all right, they avoided that, so I didn't take that loss. But the parlay ended up, it looked great and like it would have hit, but Joe Burrow just never threw a second touchdown there. And I think Jamar Chase came up just short on his yards, which I didn't understand because they were eating early, and I thought that was a lock. So the Bengals kind of fell off the rails there. And then the other parlay, Jordan Love got hurt, kind of threw it all out of whack there. So I'm not going to say injuries derailed me, but they kind of did a little bit. But it's all right; it's part of the game. And yeah, it's all right. We're getting back to the kitchen here. I think even though it's a little lighter, sometimes you just need like a little appetizer to get things going again. So we're gonna get those taste buds rolling. But Joe, do you want me to go first or you?
Yeah, you can go first because I don't have a lot.
All right, neither do I. I got 3 plays that I'm going to take all straight and again parlay. That's kind of been my theme here. And as I usually do, I'm identifying 2 bad defenses. Generally results in a high over/under. In this game, it's a 51.5 over/under. That means that offense has to be scored, and those are fun games to bet over props on. So I am targeting the Falcons and the Cowboys, and going to hit some of their star players here. So the 3 bets that I'm going to be taking straight and parlaying. I'm going to be taking Kyle Pitts over 46.5 receiving yards. Currently at minus 100, 114. That'll get to minus 110, I think, by the time Sunday rolls around. This is just earlier lines. But starting with that, then going CD Lamb over 7.5 reception. That's actually currently plus money at 110. They cannot run the ball at all. So like Kyle Pitts is involved for the Falcon side, which we've been seeing, but CeeDee Lamb is the offense for the Cowboys. So that is the only part of the Dallas offense that I feel comfortable leaning on, and I think he will be getting plenty of receptions. Sometimes they're a little short yardage, so that's why I'm hesitant to go on his over yardage, but he will get the catches. And then Bijan, I believe, will be destroying this Cowboys defense on the ground. I think he's going to go over his 73.5 rush yards. Hopefully they don't decide this is the week that they give all the touches to Algier, not the time that I actually bet on him. But assuming that doesn't happen, I think combining all 3 of those for a plus 559 is a pretty good bet for a solid parlay.
Yeah, I like him. I think Pitts really has been just really involved lately. So
that line seems too low. I don't know if there's something to know about it. 46. I feel like he should be at least in the mid 50s on that line, but that's
I honestly I really like that, and I might even think about sprinkling on a little bit of Darnell Mooney too from a passing perspective for Atlanta.
I did a lot of Mooney early in the year too. I like Mooney a lot.
Mooney's so involved every single week. It's like he's just a lock for 50, 60 yards. So I like that. And what I'll mention on that game is almost every single person that I respect and follow as it pertains to like weekly NFL side picks is on Dallas this week, +3 at Atlanta. And I don't know that I love it. Frankly, I this is one of those situations where, I don't know how to interpret. Usually if I see everybody on one bet, I'll just automatically jump right on. But I just, what do you guys think about that? Dallas +3 at Atlanta. I just feel like Dallas has been such a mess lately. And I don't know if this is like them getting some of their guys back or, I don't know. I just don't know what has changed with Dallas over the last couple weeks, where we like them against Atlanta, who's actually been scoring points. So yeah, what do you guys think? I'll be interested to hear the handicaps once I have the opportunity to go back and listen to podcasts and hear what these guys actually have to say, rather than just seeing the picks go into the various bet tracking applications.
I do not like putting my money on Dallas ever. Basically, like as a team, I just don't trust them. I think they're a supremely flawed team that gets overhyped all the time and public money loves. So I literally just avoid Cowboys. So I don't. They are. You said +3, so they are dogs, and like Falcons don't seem to be really throttling teams out. Like they haven't been able to shut the door on teams. They are scoring, but letting other people score. So maybe Cowboys can cover it, but I would not be taking the Cowboys personally.
Yeah, good. Glad you agree.
I don't know, if you've watched the Cowboys or cared all, but
I mean, I think the Falcons win the game, but like you said, the Cowboys are already dogs, but not by that much. So, yeah, I mean, I would say I agree. I'd probably be on the Falcons
is
side.
Brendan Aubrey still doing jury duty? That's a big factor.
Yeah, seriously. Hopefully not, for the Cowboys' sake. Yeah, so for my picks, I'm just similar to Dave. I haven't had a ton of opportunity to dive deep into the slate, but the one matchup that I'm most intrigued by and that I will definitely be delving into from a player prop and SGP standpoint is Philadelphia at home against Jacksonville.
Yep.
I think that you can get pretty good value just kind of loading up a little bit on something as simple as AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, both over 50 or both over 75, or if you want to go really big, both over 100 receiving yards. So just looking at those three combinations, if you parlay the two of them each to go over 50 yards, you basically get even odds, plus 105. And if you parlay them both to go over 75 yards, that jumps up to about 5-1, 475. And then if you want to go really big and both over 100 yards, then it goes up to 20-1. So I just think, depending on the how risky you want to get, if you want to know if you want a nice safe 1-to-1, then I think you could do a lot worse than AJ and Devonta Smith, both over 50 yards.
I like it, and I that was one of the games I looked at as well. I big thing Jags defense, always target the Jags defense. They're not going to stop anyone. The one thing I was looking for, and I don't see it on here, and I get it why the books wouldn't have it up here, because you don't know what's going on with Brian Thomas. But I alluded to it before. Once we start seeing the lines for Evan Ingram receptions, that might be a ladder. If there's no Brian Thomas, I don't think there is a line that will be high enough for the Ingram receptions on there. It wasn't one of our podcast bets last week, but Joey and I did take ladder the Cade Otton receptions last week, and that paid out great. And fortunately, I wish we leaned more to the National Tight End Day, but I do want to give props out to Mike Williams in our league, who made a massive tight end touchdown prop parlay bet, and I think it was 25 to win basically 4,500, and it cashed. So that was great.
Yeah, like almost every tight end scored.
Almost everyone. Yeah, it was
awesome.
wild. Yeah. But with that, those are the bets. I think the kid's just going to cook some good things up this week. I'm feeling good about it, even though it's a little quick. Mike, maybe it was an easy bake oven or a easy Mac dinner that we made tonight because it was very quick. But you know what? It's still going to fill you. But anyway, moving over to the NSFW Dynasty League Corner, just going to a quick update on the weekly high and low score that we have. Because you know what? Yours truly finally got a high score. Yes, I broke in after I sold out on my team. I got a score of 168.22. There's a lot of teams above the 160. It was a weird week because like everyone scored over 100 in our league, which means our lowest score, which was Adam and Katz, was 101.16, which is easily the highest low score that we've had. So Canales' low of 64.52 from last 2 weeks ago, still holding true. And Scotty's high score of 180.52 is still the high point that we have so far. With that being said, any final thoughts or anything going on for going into this week? I know I'll be with Ryan and a few other guys leading into Sunday football, so hopefully I can get in their heads or maybe get some trades done. But I don't know if you guys have any parting thoughts before we close things out.
No, I'm going to Maine. Does anybody know if sports betting is legal in Maine?
Check our website.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to
sign up when you get there.
Signupexpert.com/NSFW, and I'll let you guys know.
That's right. We're traveling the states to figure these things out here, guys.
Yeah, no, I'll be with Dave, so maybe we'll have some trades cooking up for you guys next time. Who knows?
Breaking news. But with that, thank you all for listening, and good luck in your Week 9 matchups. And if you're buying or selling, go all in for it, man. It's fun.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the NSFW Dynasty Podcast.